Greetings and welcome to another episode of Backroom Beats. I am your host, Lamar Harris, hanging out with CJ Conrod for another great episode. And as always, make sure that you follow us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram. Be sure to visit and sign up and subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Backroom Beats Podcast. That's Backroom Beats Podcast. And also sign up to our Anchor channel and become a Patreon so you can sit in on some of these great interviews live when we're doing them. So today we have a special treat.
Calls me baby, gives me love and makes me breakfast. I could see it now. I'm scared I'll lose it somehow. That'll slip through my hands, yeah.
And if you just saw that great clip, and if you don't know who that is, shame on you. I actually met this young lady by chance at a recording session. And I was just coming in, just doing the video. And I was like, oh my God. I'm like, I know her. Yes, I know her. And, you know, of course, shout out to Thomas, who doesn't tell you anything. He's like, oh yeah, you know, no, Joanna's here. Yeah. I'm like, okay, cool. You know, like he didn't say who it was. And I was just like, what? And I kept looking with the mask.
Who was it?
Who was it? Don't you know who it is?
Does everyone know?
I know it's Joanna Serenko.
Hey y'all, how's it going? Thank you for having me.
Oh, no, thank you for coming on. So what have you been up to this last, like, you know, I guess it's been a year since the world kind of shut down and, you know, kind of stopped for a little bit.
Yeah, I've been all over the place for real. I guess the first thing that comes to my mind is that I started school. I am a freshman in college.
Oh, wow.
And before that, I had taken a gap year to do The Voice because I was initially supposed to go into college that year. So I jumped back into college and, you know, just trying to handle that to the best of my abilities. It's like definitely it's just, you know, back in the swing of things, trying to get assignments done and stuff like that. It has definitely been a learning curve. Just plus on top of that, having the virtual learning and, you know, all of that comes with, you know, the new way they're doing things. So jumping back into that is just probably the biggest thing that I've been up to. But on top of that, I would just say, trying to get in as much writing in the free spaces that I have possible, writing and recording, just any kind of music. But I'm lucky that the opportunities have been coming up for me kind of randomly, and they just kind of are fitting in between, like, in between all the school stuff. So it's not so much that I'm like really struggling to find stuff, but it's just kind of the perfect amount that's being placed in my path. So yeah, I've been busy. I've been keeping really busy. I feel like every day is just jam-packed with something, but I'm keeping up with it.
That's cool. How often do you find yourself like writing? Like once a week, twice a week, every day when the thought hits you?
So it's honestly, I feel like the most authentic times are when I'm just driving or when I'm like kind of in flow of something else or doing something like, you know, just like showering or something where I'm just kind of like thinking of ideas and doing, you know, something that kind of keeps my, you know, my head like in something. I'm poorly explaining it, but usually those times, and I really do want to try, and I feel like I've been a lot better about it this year, about just kind of carving out time and making sure I'm doing it a little bit every day. Because I feel like I get kind of frustrated whenever I find myself like having not written anything in like weeks, and I feel like, like where's my creative juices? You know what I mean? And so I'm working on it, but just trying to find moments throughout my day where I can just take time, whether it's at school, just writing something down in my notepad, or like if I'm on the way to something, like just my notes, or I have no organization in my phone. But yeah, I feel like it's really random, but I do want to work on trying and scheduling it in a little bit more.
Well, that's what's up. You know, it's I've always been like fascinated with vocalists because it just seems like you guys just pull inspiration from like all over the place. And is there like one special thing that sometimes like, you know, you know, I know for a friend of mine, he always used to go to another friend of ours' basement and always would write. And, you know, he'd come up with all this amazing stuff in the basement. And we were like, oh, the basement has a vibe to it. So is there like a space that you just go to when you just really need to just like unleash and just focus?
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like whenever I am writing lyrics, I won't have like the whole thing down. It'll just be like lyrics, and then I'll add the melody on later. So I'll be like, whenever I am in the studio setting, I'll be like looking through my phone, seeing like what bits and pieces I took out of my random day, and then kind of start to make a melody out of it. Um, but it is really different every time, I would say, whether it be like starting with a lyric or starting with the melody or something that's like catchy, or starting with a guitar part, or, you know, like more and more. I work with my boyfriend Tyler Dale too, and he's kind of getting me more into like trying to start songs with different parts. Like he plays bass, and we just got a drum set up in his studio too. So it is fun to kind of experiment with new ways of kind of starting an idea. But yeah, when I'm busy and stuff like that, it usually starts with like a lyric or something that's in my phone, and then we get together and he has something that he's working on, and I'm like, oh, this fits well here. So that's kind of how it kind of organically flows out for me.
That's what's up.
No, I'm kind of freaked out because when you said you spent the last year back in college, it just clicked in my head. Oh my God, she is 18. You know, and you don't think that when you listen to your music. Like I listened to your singles, and I was like, this is some good. I would not think an 18-year-old wrote it, quite honestly.
Thank you
At
so much.
all.
It means a lot, for real.
And I'm like, even your voice, everything, like your stage presence, even I was going through your videos, you do not come across like someone who's just figuring it out. You come across like somebody who's already done the work and they know where they are as an artist. What do you think contributes to that?
Oh man. Well, I mean, I started singing lessons when I was like 6, and I had piano in there, and kind of just always had the, you know, I wanted to always perform for sure. And I was doing recitals by then, and I don't know, I can't really say what really speaks to just the old soul part of me. I mean, I have parents who you know, have like contributed their favorite music to my life, and so now I have like, you know, the Beatles and the old, you know, older stuff, and then I have the new generation as well. I'm not sure really. I think, I mean, I moved to St. Louis when I was in 4th grade, and so I think that kind of like sped up, you know, things for me. I'm a kind of an only child. I have a half brother and a half sister, but I love hanging out with like older people. I relate to adults better than I ever did to kids, and I feel like I've always been striving for like the respect of my elders. So that could be one thing. But yeah, I don't know. I think it might be a mixture of things.
All right, so tell us about it. What was it like being on there? What's the tea?
Okay. Well, in the beginning, when I was, well, okay, so I actually had tried out for those kinds of things a couple of times. I tried out for America's Got Talent when I was in 8th grade. And that was just, you know, I went through the process of just thousands of people in the auditorium, and I think I didn't even make it past the first round. And then the second time I did audition for The Voice, my sophomore year, and I had a little more, you know, confidence in me. I got a call back at that time and went back for the callback. It was actually at Shock City where we'd met.
Wow.
Was my callback for that one. And I sang, and I chose to accompany myself, which probably wasn't the best choice for me, just because I'm not like 100% on it, and it just limited me in my vocal, you know, confidence. So I didn't end up making that callback. And I kind of just put that whole thing on the back burner for a while. I was like, all right, I've just had my moment with like all of the TV shows. I just didn't know if I was like cut out for it, or I just kind of just had the idea that it was just, you know, they're going to pick whoever they need. And I just put it on the back burner. So a couple years later, it was my senior year. I was like on the highway and checking my phone, like, you know, just not like I'm supposed to, but I saw an email that, we want you to come do a private audition in Louisville from NBC The Voice. And I like freaked out. I called my mom, and I was like, okay, cool. So we're doing this. And then, so that summer, it was June after my senior year of high school. Tyler and I drove down to Louisville, and I did a few songs for him, and I ended up getting invited back to the next round, which was in LA.
Wow.
And I was just like, okay, well, this is like the farthest I've ever gone with any of this kind of stuff. Like, it's just crazy. And I kind of just, I did just keep the mentality of like, okay, they're just going to pick who they want for this show. And I can't take it personally because, you know, I was kind of over it. But the auditions just kept like coming, and I had a few more after that. And before I knew it, I was in a room where they had divided people up into the yes and no room, and I was kind of looking around. I was like, I'm in the no room, but I ended up being in the yes room, and so then we ended up, continuing on from there. And by then, I was practicing for my blind audition, which was just like seriously still unbelievable. I can't believe that that's even me. Looking back at the videos, I'm like, what? Like, it's just crazy. And I'll just have like random dreams about me just being on stage with just, Blake Shelton just walking past. I'm just, wow, and it doesn't even feel like me. But yeah, I just can't speak enough good things about the experience in general. Like, I went into it again with like the mindset of just being like this hokey TV show, or, like, what are they gonna make me out to be? Are they gonna like make me look bad, or are they gonna create a character for me? I just had no idea, but it wasn't like that at all. Everybody was so kind and so genuine. They truly wanted the best for you. Everybody on the team was just so cool, and like we all became friends so fast.
Wow.
Yeah, it was amazing all around.
Was that your first time being in front of an audience that big?
Actually, I think the Fox might have been the biggest audience I've been in front of. I did the teen talent competition, like when it was my senior year as well. So it was a bigger crowd then, but it was definitely like a whole new element of pressure. Just the stage and the lights is just unlike anything I've ever stood on before in my life. It was just so magnificent. The audience wasn't as big, but at the same time, it was like dark on the audience, and the only thing I could really see were the four chairs. And wow. And I even tried to like tune out of that, like I was just kind of in my own world. I remember trying to recall which ones turned at which times, and I just got it wrong. I wasn't even right about that. I was just so like in my own world. And I think for the blind audition, it was a lot easier for me. I think it might have been the easiest one of all of the performances, just because I didn't have to go up against anybody. It wasn't a battle. It wasn't a knockout. It was just, I had to prove to the judges, or the coaches, what I'm about. And all I had to do is turn one chair to move to the next round. And so I was like, all right, this is easy. I can do that.
You turned more than one chair. You turned all four.
Right.
What was going through your head at that point? Like when 3 turned around and then Blake turns around too.
Oh my gosh. Just reliving that is just so insane. I can't tell you how crazy of a feeling that was. And honestly, I think my main focus, even when I saw that, I was like, oh, I got a little jump in me. And then I was like, okay, just finish the song, Joanna, just finish the song. But it was just incredible. I still, to this day, I just cannot believe it.
Well, so let me ask you this, because I do know some people who have actually been on reality shows, and like you said, sometimes they want to tell a story. Sometimes they want to make like a backstory for you and create a character. And you said it wasn't like that at all for you.
Yeah, I mean, I knew going into it, and they were asking me obviously just about like what things in my life like have I gone through that are special, that make me unique. And there were a few different things, but I think the one that I just resonated most with was that, my mom and I moved to St. Louis whenever I was 10. And she's always just been a huge support of my life. And, like, it's just me and her in St. Louis. And so they kind of just created a story. They flew out their director to St. Louis, and they took my mom out to some of the places, like, where do we go? We went to the Arch and just like a couple St. Louis staples. But they did a really good job with it. They didn't make me out to be somebody that I wasn't, or like stretch anything. They just, captured my mom and I, like, and she talked about me, and like her talking about like I was kind of talking about the struggle, like, of figuring out what I'm doing with my life. And she is just herself too. She talked about like, all the ways in which she was proud of me for, just working on my craft despite, everything. So, yeah, it wasn't a stretch at all, and I had friends when I was there who were like like freaking out about what their stories were going to be, but I definitely just felt like mine was really authentic to what my story was. So
Wow. What were some of your fondest moments of like that whole experience?
some of my fondest moments. Well, I would say that the first round that I was there, I met like my three best friends. It was me, Mandy, Brittany, and Shelby. Mandy and Brittany were on the show, and Shelby, unfortunately, it's so sad. She got to the blind audition. She had her outfit on, everything, waiting backstage, but she was put on like there were like 6 days of auditions, and she was put on the last day, and so the teams filled up before she got a chance to go audition.
Wow.
Which is such a bummer. But she actually just re-auditioned last week, and so she's waiting to hear back.
Oh, cool.
Hopefully they bump her up, because they did that for Tate. He went on before me, and he was one of the kids who went last year, or who tried out the year before, and the teams filled out. So hopefully she gets up there again, because I would love to see her kill it. But anyway, just 3 of my girl best friends, like we literally instantly, it was just like a gravitational pull to like the people who I needed to meet, for real. It's crazy. But we just like rolled around the hotel, like, went on walks together, did all our stuff together. So they became like friends that I will keep forever. Shelby lives in Kansas City, and they've come to St. Louis a few times, and yeah, so I am super grateful for the relationships I got to make. And I just will never, my dog just came in. Will never take that for granted. So that's for sure.
I'm amazed the dog just opened the door, like just jumped up and opened it and came on in.
Away too. She just opened and left.
Are you in there on audition? Oh, my bad. I'll be back later.
But yeah, that would be my one of my top highlights. But I definitely, oh my gosh, whenever I found out that the mega mentor was James Taylor, I about shit my pants. Like, it was crazy. I remember I was sitting backstage waiting to find out who it would be. And we weren't really supposed to know until we walked out on stage, but I was sitting back there and I was hearing somebody else's rehearsal going on. And I just hear John Legend like yelling across the stage, "It's James Taylor." And I was like, no way, this is crazy. I immediately texted Tyler and his whole fam, because like he's just a hero to so many of us in St. Louis, for real. And I told him that. I was like, thank you so much for everything. That's a huge highlight too. It's so strange, like just somebody like that being the mega mentor, and the season I'm on it, like it just seems so divine. I just can't explain it in any other way, for real. It seemed like God, for real.
Wow.
What did you take away from that experience?
So at that point I was rehearsing my song. It was Angel from Montgomery by Bonnie Raitt, which is crazy because he's toured with Bonnie and all that stuff, and so I got to play it in front of him, and that was at the time I was playing guitar for myself, and they ultimately told me, just sing and don't do the guitar thing. And I'm thankful for that too, because I think yet again I would have been putting myself in one of those limiting situations where I wouldn't be able to do as much vocally as I'd like to. But I played the song for him, and they kind of gave me their feedback, and he was like, yeah, Bonnie would really dig it if she heard that. And I was like, thank you so much. So, like, inside, but I kept it cool on the outside. I was like, oh my gosh, thank you.
Man, that's crazy. I mean, even in that short amount of time, it seemed like you've just gained a wealth of experience, whereas some people just, they have to go a whole lifetime in order to be able to get to that point. How do you just keep yourself just even motivated to just keep going, day after day, and keep striving to just keep creating new content and,
Yeah. Well, I will say, like, The Voice, was a great experience, and it did a lot for me. Ultimately, I think, in the long run, the most that it did for me was probably just getting my following and just like, giving me the credibility to move forward, with The Voice behind me. And just the Instagram following, like being verified now and, having like 20,000 followers is what The Voice offered me. But at the same time, like, that's kind of the past now, and there's just so much more to be done. I am an original artist. I love writing music. I want to make it as an original artist. So I made the goal for the album to be out by 2021, but I care more about it being perfect than about how fast it comes out. So I really want to work on that. And yeah, I think it's just like sometimes I just forget that it even happened, and I'm like just so forward focused. Like, oh, what's next year gonna look like for me? What's the year after that gonna look like for me? Which is a blessing and a curse because it keeps me wanting to do everything I possibly can, but it also, tears me out of the present moment a lot, and I forget, what should I be doing now to get me there? Like, what should I be doing in the present moment to get me to where I want to be tomorrow? So I don't know. There's like the pressure on myself because I feel like I have to amount to something great. But at the same time, I'm just learning to like take it day by day and just do my best with what I've got. So,
Do you find yourself like watching a lot of tape or like going back as far as like studying like artists who've came before you? Like if so, like who are some of those artists that you like kind of like resonate and go back and study them a little bit?
the first one that comes to mind is definitely Amy Winehouse.
I
Um,
hear it.
yeah.
I hear it.
We
Thank
love
you.
it.
Thank you so much. Well, yeah, dude, I think just her writing abilities is something that I've always just been so admirative of. Like I saw her documentary, and it kind of just showed like her music, and then the lyrics would float across the screen, and I, be reading it, and I'm like, wow, like it's so crazy how I can sometimes put myself in a box of like the kind of artist that I need to be when Amy's literally just writing from her heart, like probably the first words that come to her head. You know what I mean? And it just shows so much authenticity in a writer that I just would love, that I admire so much. So Amy for sure. I'm trying to think. It's really hard when people ask me this question because I think of all of the different people. But John Mayer for sure, just as a writer and a musician, I think that he's amazing and somebody that I really want to work with in the future. But Daniel Caesar, Erykah Badu, Emily King, Alan Stone. Those are the people that I'm like thinking off the top of the dome. But
Those are some good
there's
people.
somebody I'm gonna think of later, and then and then be kicking myself. But yeah. One thing about Alan Stone, he came to St. Louis for a concert, and the thing that I just most admired about that whole experience was just being in the audience and looking up at him and just being able to feel the abounding gratefulness coming from him. Like he was just truly one of those artists that was like truly, truthfully so happy to have the audience there with him who really cared about what he had to offer. And I want to incorporate that into my musicianship as well, because like that's really what I care about the most is like I just want people to really resonate with what I have to give. And so definitely Alan. If I think of any more, I'll holler, but those are the first ones that come.
Just watching you in the studio, man, that was like some people have like they do good stage etiquette. They can turn it on, turn it off. Sometimes you get in the studio with them and they're just like, oh my God, like who is this nightmare that just came in? And it's like, what in the world? And it's like just watching you just flow, like you were just like comfortable, gimbal rolling around. I'm on the floor, like running around, like, capturing shots. You still singing, like, and talking to the camera and stuff like that. Like, how did you, like, how does one like get comfortable with that? Because some people struggle with that.
Yeah, man. Well, I think that's a good question. I think the first thing that I think of is I got into theater when I was in middle school. And so, I kind of just had that kind of influence of just all my acting friends and the people I was growing up around, in middle school and in the shows that I was doing. For sure helped me like kick on that like stage presence, like, oh, I have an audience, like I have to be a character. So I think doing that since it was probably from like 5th grade until around my freshman year of high school. I remember trying a show in freshman year and I just wasn't really vibing with, everything. It wasn't like middle school. I think in middle school, it's actually crazy. The directors really put a lot of time into the kids there. And I don't know, it was just an ultimately different experience, like just the people and just everything. I was just kind of moved on by then. And that's when I started writing for myself and kind of what I became more interested in. But definitely like my 7th and 8th grade years, I had a lead role. I was Marion in The Music Man. And then my 8th grade year, I was Mabel in Pirates of Penzance. And so I just had like, I had time to learn that about myself and learn, the stage presence and trying to convey a certain, vibe to the audience as well. So That's probably the biggest practice I've had with that. But otherwise, like, I think it does come from an authentic place, just from like really just wanting people to feel my music and feel what I'm saying too. So, yeah.
You're working on this album. What are you envisioning? What do you want to put out? What is this the debut statement from Joanna Serenko?
Oh, okay, good question. That's a good question. Well, I've kind of just been accumulating my songs over the past couple years, and so it's hard because I'm finding like I'm changing. My music is, like growing, and it's hard because there's the side of me that wants to release like something that's more like R&B esque, that's like more free flowing poetry. But then there's like my older stuff that's like I would consider like my original like singer-songwriter vibe, and it's hard. I haven't really planned it out yet, to be honest with you. I know for a fact that I'm gonna release a little EP of just guitar and vocals. It's hard because I really love just the stripped bareness of my originals, as well as like wanting to put the work in and get all my favorite people to be the musicians and stuff. I'm like a full band version. But I am still figuring out kind of all the logistics. I don't know. There are songs I for sure know I just want to be like solely acoustic, and then songs that I just have no idea what I'm gonna do with yet. So I'm kind of just taking it one step at a time. So my first two singles, Best of Me and Good Side, my cousin booked those dates up in New York and Brooklyn. He did this. It's called Mason Jar Music Studios, and for my graduation, my dad got me some studio time, and I went up there. He's the drummer on both of those tunes. His name's Jake Goldbass. He's killing. Wow. But so those two were kind of made together, and like I feel like I was just a different person at that time too. That was before anything happened. So
Oh wow! So all that was before The Voice?
yeah.
Really?
I released Best of Me right before I was supposed to go on, because we weren't allowed to release music like whenever we were on the show. So I released Best of Me right before I did the show, and then Good Side, my second single, right after I was done. But I did record them both at the same time at Mason Jar Studios.
Wow.
So like that's the vibe of those two songs, and then Sister of Nostalgia is my third single that I did in St. Louis. So I did that at Sherpa Studios, and I some of my favorite STL musicians on that one. And Jake did do drums on it, so I sent it to him, and he threw a drum track on it. But it's cool because like taking your time on each one kind of gives you room and space to just like sit with it for a moment and like really, I don't know. I loved watching it unfold whenever I was doing that one, because we started with just the vocals and the guitar, and then added on the drums, and then added on the bass, and did re-vocals at Sherpa and all that stuff. So it was cool to do it that way, and I feel like I want to continue doing it that way. But at the same time, I think it could be really cool. I'm just like I'm just openly speaking because I have nothing set in stone yet. I'm really just like nothing planned yet. But it would be also cool to like knock out all the guitar parts and then kind of add on to each of them from there. But ultimately, like I do want to release a bare stripped acoustic vocal one too. Oh my God, so many ideas. I don't even know. I'm just spilling on you right now, but
no, do them all.
Nothing set in stone yet.
Do them all.
You've got time to do it all. Trust.
Do it all.
Thank you.
And that kind of just, I guess, like leads into another question I was just kind of curious of. What would be the ultimate situation like if tomorrow, you could go with a style of music, whether it be an orchestra, a band, brass band, whatever, what would be the ultimate scenario for you that if you had to go tomorrow and go and do, what would you do?
Okay, so like what are like for me or for like just in general?
Just in general.
Well, it is such an amazing feeling to have full band behind me, especially on songs that I've written, because I write them as these acoustic, just me and my guitar, and then watching them unfold to be these big, beautiful, grandiose songs is really cool. I love that. And it's awesome, for some songs, because like the instruments might highlight some of the lyrics or just things like that. But at the same time, I really appreciate when everything behind me is really subtle. Like I could be comfortable with just like a classical guitar backing me up, and then me just being so free to do whatever I want with the vocals, you know? So I think that would be my answer is I just love having the freedom and having people like in a band who really pay attention to that, like pay attention to like letting the vocalist do what they do, and don't step on their toes too much. So I mean, not that the people, you know, who I play with do that at all, but you know, it is kind of a freeing feeling to have just one instrument behind you, and having the rest of it all to yourself, just to kind of do it do it by yourself.
How are you as far as like making stuff up on the spot?
Like lyrically, or like
when I first met
CJ, if I say I'm good at it, then you're gonna make me do it, and then I'm gonna suck. So
oh no, we won't have you do it now.
I'm better, really way better at thinking of melodies on the spot. Like if you give me lyrics, then I could absolutely just make like, you know, something off the dome. That's my favorite thing. I just love like going back to whatever lyrics I've written down and then just doing whatever feels right with it. And I feel like I've definitely just gotten better with that the more I do write, but it's a process for sure.
Yeah, I remember when I met CJ, you know, I'll be like, hey, come and perform with me. Are we having rehearsal? Nah, we'll make it up as we go along. So we'll be literally at a festival about like, not that many people, about 500 to about like 3,000 or 4,000 folks. And we literally are just making this stuff up as we go along. and
that's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, I definitely would love to be in that scenario. I love being in those scenarios as well. I did do Jazz U for a minute, for like a hot second. It was my senior year, and I literally just signed up my last year just because my friend Dominic Anzalone was in that group for he did drums in it, and I didn't really even know about it until the last year I was able to do it. So I popped in there, and I was in a little jazz combo for a minute, which helps me a lot whenever I went to some of the I'm blanking on the name right now, but they would have little like jazz open mic night things, and I would go to those and try and keep up with the actual jazz musicians. But
Bob DeBoo, probably Bob's.
Bob, yeah, he's killing.
Yeah, Dominic is killing too. Dominic's played with me before. Yeah, he's
Dom's one of my best friends. Yeah, he's out in California now, but yeah, seriously one of the best dudes. So yeah, I'm lucky that he was able to kind of help me get incorporated there with the jazz people. For sure, that's been a huge help with, you know, learning all about it and learning how to kind of do improv stuff too.
Speaking of improv, a lot of vocalists I know sometimes, you know, when they're put in certain situations, it's just hard for them to like vibe not only the room, but also vibe what's behind them. How do you go about like controlling what's in front of you and what's behind you to make everything come into full circle so that it stays in harmony, where it keeps you balanced, keeps the audience in tune, but at the same time makes the musician stay in tune with the direction that you're wanting to go?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I want to have a good answer for that. I would say it really is just something where it's fun because you go into the room and you have no idea what to expect, and you kind of just have to go with the flow. You're forced to go with the flow and figure out what the energy in the room's going to be. And if you're a musician, like the best kinds of musicians are definitely the people who can just take with what they're given. Like, I don't know, I feel like I've been in some shows where I've definitely like something bad has happened beforehand, or something, you know, like I get a comment or something that I'm, you know, dwelling on, and I'm just, you know, in my own space, but then I'm forced to like go up there and just act like nothing happened. So I don't know, it's fun to do those things just because like every kind of audience is a new energy and a new way to kind of go about it. But I will say that I think it's just a huge learning process, because I remember doing one of my performances on the show. It was the Angel from Montgomery song, and I was going up against this really talented singer. Her name was Zan Fiscom, and she was singing The Story by Brandi Carlile, which is just obviously the best song that you could have gotten. But so she killed it, knocked it out of the park. We did the rehearsal the day before, and I killed my song the day before rehearsal. And, you know, it was great. And it was the next day. I walked out on stage and I was nervous. And I remember that day I like didn't do what they told me to do. I think I walked past. Oh, I went back to my seat. There were 2 seats, and I walked back to my seat instead of standing on the X. And they were like, "Oh, come back." And I was just fumbling, and I knew I was nervous. I knew like this girl was going to be amazing. I mean, I don't know. I was definitely in my own head that day, and it was kind of in the middle of the chorus or something like that. I'm not sure, but it was in the middle of the tune, and I just kind of looked up, and I thought to myself, "Wow, there are, you know, millions of people watching me right now." And I could feel it physically churn something within me and just make me, you know, nervous. Like, and I doubted myself. You know, I just doubted what I do naturally. And that was kind of when the fear crept in, and where I feel like I could have done better than I, you know, did it on the show. Like, I feel like I did better at the rehearsal than I did on the actual day that I had to perform it for real. So it's just funny. And it's kind of just learning yourself too. Like, learning how to control those thoughts when they come in and not letting them affect you too much. Because it's different every time. I don't think I've ever experienced anything quite like that, to that magnitude of, you know, really watching one of my thoughts affect the way I perform. But at the same time, you know, like I was, you know, it's happened before. Like, I've definitely been able to like learn from it and be able to catch myself and not let it completely stir me up and mess me up. So like over time, you know, definitely making the mistakes is honestly like the most helpful thing, because it just tells you like how to control, you know, what you can control. So I don't know. I don't have a, you know, a specific answer, but that's probably
that is a specific answer. Seriously. I mean, because a lot of times I think a lot of vocalists and musicians.
Sounds like what you're saying is stay in the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, there are always going to be things in your path, like obstacles in your path that throw you or distract you. And it's just what you do at the present moment that really matters. Because I know, because whenever I thought to myself, oh, a million people are watching me, I wasn't in the present moment. I was in the future moment, just thinking about all, you know, watching myself, watching me, you know, whenever the tape would come out. So yeah, that's definitely it. Staying in present. That's super important.
Yeah. And even creating that character is definitely important too. You know, a friend of ours, late Steve Moore, aka son of Star Child, used to always have us in the basement watching tape over and over again of like Parliament, you know, Curtis Mayfield, I mean, Isley Brothers, I mean, Willie Hutch, I mean, Tina Turner. And he'd always say, "Hey, Bone, it's a character." And when you understand how to create that character, you know, it literally, like, you know, regardless of what's going on in the world, that character shows up and is going to do what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like it. You'll find some in that room.
Yeah, and it even like zaps you back into remembering why you do what you do. Like, even if you do have one of those bad moments beforehand, you go up there and you start doing what you love doing, and then you're like, oh, I'm good. Like, I'm not even fazed by any of that stuff. So I think that was a little bit trickier to find myself in that present moment whenever I was doing the voice. But I think, like, you know, whenever you do that stuff after, you know, afterwards, or coming back down to real life, yeah, definitely experience that.
Yeah, that's just cool.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say, but
yeah. I mean, you know, so what kind of advice do you have for like a lot of the young artists out there, you know, that are wanting to get into like singing and being a star, you know? What should they do?
I would say definitely just take the opportunities that come along. Another thing that I wanted to mention was, whenever I was trying to like figure out, you know, being an independent artist, it was before I even had many songs written. I think I had like 3 like shitty songs written. And I got this gig. Somebody hollered at me and was like, "Hey, you should do this opening gig. Covers are cool, but we'd rather have you do mostly originals." And I was like, okay, I'll take it. And I took it, and it was like 3 months later, and I had time to kind of prepare for it. And it really forced me to start writing, actually. And so, like, that was the opportunity that kind of pushed me to have those experiences and to write the tunes. So I'd say definitely, even when you're uncomfortable, take the opportunities and then figure it out later, because it'll just make you grow as a person. And just don't fear it, because like you just have to believe in yourself that you know that you got what it takes. And even if you fail, like it's a learning lesson. Like it's a lesson to be learned, and you just take it with you and go to the next thing.
Right.
So I'd say fearing the opportunities would only hold you back. So don't do that.
Ooh, that's true. In words of Cody Chestnut, everything you create is a work of art. You know, he's like, it's not no shitty work. It's just that it was the artwork that was there for that moment in time. And
exactly. That's so true.
you know,
So true.
he lectured us on a tour bus about that, and we were like, "This is our demo." No, it's not.
Oh,
No, it's a piece. It's a work of art. It's art in this moment in time. I mean,
I love that. I want to use that.
yeah, put that on that shirt. Marketing and selling these mugs. Piece of art.
Love it. Oh yeah.
By Joanna Serenko.
Into that, because that made me think back to what Joanna, you were talking about putting your project together. You wanted to wait till it was perfect, and I'm thinking to myself, sometimes you don't have to wait till it's perfect. You just have to just throw it out there, because it's like you're saying, a reflection of where you are right now, and the next project will be the reflection of where you are then. You know. So,
yeah, exactly.
I mean, I do understand wanting it right and wanting.
Yeah, totally.
No, I understand wanting it right, but at the same time, go ahead. You talk.
Cutting you off. You finish. You go. Go ahead.
No, I was saying I do understand wanting to get it right, but sometimes I can speak for myself that I've sat on songs because I was like, oh, it's still not right. It's still not right. It's still not right. And I've sat on it for like 10 years. You know what I mean? And so I'm like, I just don't want you to do that. So.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's so hard. I'm like holding back. I want to just like, I literally just want to share my voice memos. You know what I mean? And make like an album of voice memos, because I love some of my voice memos and I wouldn't even change them. Like Sister of Nostalgia, I still listen to the voice memo of that, and that's like one of my favorite versions, like next to the actual version, but of course. But like, yeah, I totally agree. And there have been songs where I would have just like acoustic and vocals, and then I'd be adding more shit on top of it and being like, okay, now I just want to reverse it, like go back, because it was just so authentic in its truest form, which was just the guitar and vocals, which is kind of why I really want to go the kind of acoustic EP route and just see what from that, if I would keep it and just put it on the album without making a full band, or I don't know. I'm still just in the midst of deciding all of that, but I know for a fact that there will be times where like I've wrote something on guitar and then try to do too much to it or add too much, and then it kind of just like takes away the essence of what it was made to be. But yeah, I totally get that for sure.
I mean, I would love to take your voice memos and put them like to house tracks, because some tells me that would be some interesting stuff to groove to. I love house music, so.
Oh yeah, that absolutely.
And your voice is real soothing. Like it would just like, you know, you just put that beat on it, just groove along to it. So something to think about.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
No, man. So, you know, where can everybody find you at? You know, where do they follow you at?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing for me would probably be my Instagram, Joanna Serenko. And it's not official yet. I haven't started it, but in the works is Patreon. I'm going to get that started and try and get that rolling probably before April. But yeah, probably Instagram is probably the best place to find me. And then on Spotify, Apple Music, all that stuff is under Joanna Serenko as well.
That's cool. Make sure when the Patreon comes out that you subscribe to the Patreon, you know, especially if you want to really support an artist, you know, get inside the creative process. That is the way to go. Just give those dollars, just give up the money. That's the easiest thing. Give up the money.
Thank you so much.
So, I mean, we've enjoyed having you here today, and you taking time out your schedule in between school and everything to come on and, you know, share these gems with us. Cause I think your voice is one that definitely needs to be heard more, and people just need to just learn more, like, hey, you know, started right here and now I'm right here. You can do it too, you know, and hear your creative process and everything. Cause like I said, I was amazed in the studio. I was sitting up there like, oh, okay, this is nice. Oh, that kill it.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you so much for having me on, for real. This has been one of the best interviews I've ever done, for real. Even before, even the voice interviews, I feel like some of them are just like so fast paced and they didn't really try to get to know me. So thank you guys so much.
Well, this has been another episode of Backroom Beats with Joanna Serenko, CJ Conrod. Make sure that you follow her. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Make sure when the Patreon comes out, you subscribe to that. And everything else that's going down, support the music and support original music. And especially if you're from St. Louis, you should already have the music and be getting ready to get it. Support your own. And until next time, we'll holla. Peace.